Have you ever wanted to grow dahlia bulbs in your garden, but you weren't sure how to get started, or you just want to know more about dahlias in general? In this video, I'm going to help you build your dahlia bulb knowledge and show you how to grow them step by step in your garden. Hi there, I'm Sean from Spoken Garden, and my wife Allison and I are partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden. We want to help you become a better gardener and grow your best vegetable and flower crops yet. So let's talk about dahlias. Now, before we show you how to plant your dahlia bulbs, there's a couple things we'd like you to know. First, dahlias are native to Mexico and Central America. They're considered a hardy perennial in zones 8 through 11, but you can still grow them in other zones, if that's where you're gardening, as an annual. You can also grow them in those zones, but you're going to need to dig them up to protect them over the winter time from the harsh temperatures and frost. Dahlias are planted in the spring, usually mid to late spring when the soil temperature is a lot warmer and so is the daytime temperatures. Now, dahlias can flower as early summer, all the way through the summer into the fall, depending on which dahlia you are growing. You'll hear some gardeners refer to dahlias as tubers or even just bulbs in general, but really dahlias are what's called a tuberous root. And the reason for this is it comes down to their structure. They're actually made up of multiple bulbs that you can see right here that all connect by a neck coming off of each one of those bulbs that connect to a central point, or what's called the crown of the tuberous root. Now, at the crown of that tuberous root, there'll be what's called eyes or buds, and that's where your stems are going to grow from. Dahlia flowers come in a lot of different colors and color combinations, along with different flower forms, including decorative, cactus, dinner plate, and a lot more. Now, along with the flowers, the dahlia leaves can either be light or dark green, and dahlias prefer full sun, but they can tolerate some shade. Know, though, that the more sun you give your dahlias, the bigger the flowers will be. Make sure to pick a location that is very protected from mild or heavy winds. The bulb we'll be planting today is called Black Narcissus, and it's a semi-cactus double-flowered dahlia. It has dark green leaves and will flower in late summer to early fall. It'll grow up to 36 inches tall and should be placed 12 to 18 inches away from other dahlias or other plants. Black Narcissus is easy to grow and to maintain, and it has average water needs. It's great for cut flower gardens or landscape beds. It attracts bees and butterflies, and it is susceptible to a couple different diseases, especially waterborne diseases, so make sure not to overwater your dahlias or have them in standing water for too long. Now, dahlias in general are not deer or rabbit resistant, and they're not drought tolerant or frost tolerant. The best time to plant your dahlia bulbs is when your soil is warming up and the last threat of frost has passed. Plant your dahlia bulbs during the longer, warmer days of spring, not at the very beginning of spring. Dahlia bulbs can be planted out into your garden as late as mid-June in some parts of the United States. The first thing you want to do when you get your bulbs is you want to open up the package and take them out. You want to inspect them and make sure that there's no discoloration. You want to hold them in your hand and make sure there's some heft with them. You also want to just give them a little squeeze and see if they have any resistance or if they're really squishy. Now, it's really important to know how deep in the ground you need to place these bulbs and how far apart they need to be placed. So each one of these bulbs is going to need to be placed 2 inches below the soil surface, and that's measuring from the crown of each bulb where the eyes are. Now, you might be able to see the eyes actively growing like you can here. If you don't see the bulbs actively growing, go by where the actual bulbs and the necks of each bulb come together at the crown there, and at that central point, use that as your point of reference for the 2 inches below the ground. Now, spacing these, you'll need to make sure they're 12 to 18 inches apart so they have plenty of room to grow. Now, you can plant your bulbs either in ground beds or in raised beds or in containers like you see here. For this size of container, we're just going to plant one of these bulbs in here, and that'll be plenty of room for it to grow. You can use potting soil, you can use a regular garden soil, any type of soil that has really good drainage and lots of organic matter and will help anchor this bulb into the ground so it can grow tall and strong with lots of beautiful flowers. Now, if you're not going to plant in a container like this with nice loose soil, you'll need to dig your hole twice as wide as deep as the bulb is out in your garden, especially a ground bed, so all that soil is nice and fluffy and loose so it'll have a really easy time growing into it and getting established. In this type of soil, we don't really need to dig too big of a hole at all. We just need to dig down as far as we need to just to place this bulb down in here. So we're going to place the bulb down into this hole, into this planting hole, and we need to go 2 inches below the soil surface. And that means we're going to go 2 inches below here. And if we use our hori-hori knife, we're going to need to go at least down to here, and that'll be at where the stems are coming out. That'll be our point of reference. So we'll need to dig down fairly deep to get this down in here, because we can either plant this on its side like this with all of these facing upwards, or we could plant it a little bit more vertical. I think we're going to go with a little bit more horizontal because that'll be easier and less digging for us. So, and less soil removal. So let's get this down in there. There we go. And then from our reference point right here, if we're down, that's really good. Yep, that's exactly where we need to be. So that's our 2 inches down at this reference point where these buds or these stems, what are commonly known as eyes, where these stems come out on these bulbs. So now we can just bury the bulb down in the ground, down in this hole. And that's okay to leave that stem like that. That's perfectly fine. We don't want to disturb or bend that stem. Just go ahead and place the soil around it, lightly tamp down on the soil, and then what we need to do is just give it an initial watering because it's already started growing those buds, so it's actively growing. We need to get that water down in there to continue to grow and develop. Now with this other dahlia bulb, we want to show you, if you don't see any of these active stems growing and you just have the bulb itself, just plant it down in the hole, but don't water just yet. You want to wait for these buds to come popping through the soil surface and then start watering it. If you start watering it before you have this active growth, you run the risk of your bulbs rotting in the soil and you won't be able to enjoy them. Now, as I already mentioned, dahlia bulbs don't like to be in standing water or they're going to rot. They do like, though, consistent watering, so just keep an eye on that and keep up your watering schedule. As your dahlia bulbs grow, you'll watch them start growing up out of the ground. You want to let them grow up to about 5 sets of leaves and then pinch them back down to the 4th set of leaves, and this will help the plant grow sturdier and produce even more flowers and stems. Now, whether you're growing your dahlias in containers or in ground beds, you want to make sure you keep up the weeding around them because you don't want your dahlia plants competing with other plants for nutrients, water, or soil availability. To help along with keeping your weeds under control, you can mulch around your dahlia plants. This will help definitely keep the weeds under control, and it'll help retain moisture down in the soil to make it more readily available for your dahlia bulbs. It'll also keep the soil a little bit cooler during the summer months, which is always a great idea for most plants. Now make sure to watch out for pests like aphids, spider mites, thrips, slugs, and earwigs. Also look out for powdery mildew, stem rot, and other viral and fungal diseases. Now dahlias are considered heavy feeders, and so you're going to need to fertilize them throughout the season. You can start with the general fertilizer of 222 or 555. Now you can fertilize every week if you're using a liquid fertilizer, but you can also use what's called a time release fertilizer, and that way you can just apply a fertilizer once and that'll keep you covered for a couple months. Now you can also use a fertilizer that's high in phosphorus or potassium, and that'll really help your plants continue to flower and be as beautiful as possible. Now through the growing season, you're going to come across dead or diseased stems or leaves. Make sure to remove those so your incidence of diseases is low. Also, good air circulation is a must for dahlias, so once your dahlias have grown a couple feet tall, you can thin out a couple of those stems to make sure that there's good airflow around all the plants. One of the fun things about growing dahlias is they're going to continue to flower all the way up to the first frost, and then they'll slow down and start to wither and stop flowering. If you're growing dahlias in containers or below zone 8, you'll need to dig up those dahlia bulbs and store them and protect them before any consistent hard frosts start. But if you're growing them outside in ground beds and you're growing them in zones 8 through 11, you can keep them in the ground. Just make sure to cover them with about 2 to 4 inches of mulch to help insulate them during those winter months. If you're growing your bulbs outside in the ground beds or somewhere else and they're not hardy where you're growing them, all you need to do is just dig them up out of the ground, make sure to wash them off, let them dry, and then you can store them in a cool, dry, dark spot for the rest of the winter. You're going to need to make sure to remove any dead or dying tissue though, and remove all leaves. When storing them, make sure to put them in some type of container or box that has an open lid, and put some newspaper or even sand or sawdust around them so they have some type of insulation around them. Make sure to keep that box up off the ground, and a workbench or some type of stool will work really well. If you're growing your dahlias for cut flowers, your stems will need to be on each cut flower 12 to 20 inches or more. You can harvest your dahlia flowers in the early morning, cutting stems when the flowers are nearly fully open, but before the outer petals begin to wilt. You can place each cut stem in cool, clean water immediately after cutting. Also, harvesting cut flowers and deadheading on a regular basis helps encourage the plants to grow more flowers. For each cut flower stem, you can make your cuts down to the next node, ensuring that another flower will grow right from there. there. When harvesting cut flowers and removing spent ones, you give each plant the chance to redistribute needed nutrients to other developing flowers and can also create more space for flowers to grow. Now, if you need more bulb or flower planting or growing tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides. And we hope this video was really helpful for you to plant and grow dahlias in your garden. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.